Hello, dear listener. The testimony I will be sharing with you today is from a man who died and was shown the disaster that will soon occur on this planet Earth. He sent this as a warning to everyone who would care to listen, so if you are listening to this, please, I beg you to watch to the end so you don't miss the most important part of this testimony. Before I begin, we will love to know where you are listening from. That way we can connect as one family. Also like and share this video to anyone you care about. Now let's listen to the testimony. My name is Mark. And I want to tell you something that happened to me that I still don't fully have words for. Not because I don't remember it. I remember every single detail. This happened to me about 2 years ago. I was 44 years old. I was not a perfect man. I was not a pastor or a prophet or somebody special. I was just Mark. A regular man who went to church sometimes and prayed when things got hard and mostly tried to keep my head down and live my life. I believed in God the way a lot of people do, sort of in the background, sort of like a safety net you know is there but you don't really think about until you're falling. That was me. That was who I was when this happened. I want to be honest about that because I think it matters. I wasn't seeking a vision. I wasn't fasting. I wasn't deep in prayer or on some spiritual retreat. I was tired. I had been working long hours that week and I laid down on a Thursday afternoon just to rest my eyes for a little while, and something happened that changed everything about how I see this world and what I believe is coming. I want you to stay with me because what I experienced was not a dream. I know the difference. We all know the difference. When you wake up from a dream, the feeling fades within minutes, and by noon you can barely remember what it was about. What happened to me has not faded one single day. If anything, it gets more vivid as time goes on, like the meaning of it keeps unfolding, like it was so large that my mind is still catching up to what I saw. So let me tell you, the first thing I noticed was that I was somewhere high up, not like standing on a mountain, more like I was suspended, like I was held in the air the way a bird gets lifted on a current, effortless, no falling, no fear. I could see the earth below me. And when I say the earth, I don't mean a small piece of it. I mean the actual earth, curved at the edges, blue and brown and green and white, the whole thing stretched out beneath me like something you might see in a photograph from space, except I was inside the experience, not looking at a picture. I could feel the air. I could feel something like wind, except it wasn't cold and it wasn't warm. It was just present, like the atmosphere itself was alive and breathing. And at first it was beautiful. That is the only honest word. It was the most beautiful thing I have ever seen in my life. More beautiful than any place I have ever traveled to. More beautiful than any sunset. More beautiful than anything this world has ever offered my eyes. The earth from that height was just breathtaking, and I remember standing there or floating there, suspended in that space, and feeling something close to gratitude just rise up in my chest without me deciding to feel it. Like something in me recognized what I was looking at and just responded to it. Like the beauty reached inside and pulled something out. I don't know how long I stood there just taking it in, but then I started to notice things changing. It started with the clouds. There were cloud systems across the earth, the kind you can see from high altitude, those slow swirling patterns that from space look gentle and almost artistic. But these weren't moving the way clouds normally move. These were accelerating. And they weren't just regular storm systems. Something about them was different. The color was wrong, not the dark gray of a thunderstorm. Deeper than that, almost like the color had been drained out and replaced with something else, a kind of heavy, bruised darkness that seemed to carry weight, like the clouds themselves were pressing down on the earth from above, and they were growing. I watched as these systems expanded and merged, and I started to see what they were forming. It was like watching several things happen at once. In one part of the earth, I could see what looked like the ocean beginning to behave strangely, the water pulling back from coastlines the way it does just before a tsunami, except the scale of it was beyond anything historical. In another region, I watched as the ground itself seemed to shift, like the land was being rearranged by something underneath it, slow and terrible and inevitable. Fire in another part of the world. Not like a wildfire contained to a forest or a hillside, but something vast, columns of it, like the earth had opened. And above all of it, that storm system, that massive rotating darkness tying all of it together, spreading across the sky like a lid closing over everything. I want to be careful here because I don't want to use language that sounds like a movie or like I am exaggerating for effect. I am telling you what I saw, and what I saw was the kind of thing that makes you understand in your bones what the word catastrophe actually means. Not the word we use loosely for things going wrong, the original meaning, the kind of thing that ends an era, the kind of thing that changes the story of the world. I felt fear. I need to say that plainly. I felt real fear watching it. Not panic, not hysteria, but a deep and settled kind of dread. The kind that comes when you understand the scale of what you're seeing and you realize that the people down there, billions of them, have no idea what is moving toward them. I thought about people going to work that morning, people making coffee, kids in classrooms, mothers putting their children to bed. I thought about how ordinary the world looks from the inside of it, how nobody wakes up thinking today is the day everything changes. And I watched this thing moving toward the earth, and I felt a grief that I don't have words for, a grief that went down to the floor of me. And then, everything stopped. I mean that literally. The storm systems that had been accelerating, paused. The ocean that had been pulling back, held. The fire, the shifting ground, all of it suspended, like someone had pressed pause on the entire event. The darkness was still there, but it wasn't moving. The sky looked like a photograph of itself, and the silence that came with it was not the ordinary silence of a quiet room or a peaceful morning. It was something else. It was the silence of something enormous holding its breath, and in that silence I became aware of a presence. I can't tell you what it looked like because it did not look like anything. It was not a figure standing next to me. It was not a voice coming from a direction. It was more like a presence that surrounded the whole space, the way warmth fills a room without you being able to point to where it is. But it was not just warm, it was weighty. It had an authority to it that was unlike anything I have ever experienced from any human being. When people talk about the fear of the Lord, I understood it in that moment in a way that I never had before, from reading about it or hearing a sermon about it. This was not terror. It was not the fear you feel when someone threatens you. It was the fear you feel when you suddenly understand the size of something, when you grasp that you are in the presence of something that existed before you did, before the earth did, before anything did, and that it holds everything. I mean everything. I mean it holds the atoms and the stars and the seconds and the decisions and the whole vast, ridiculous, painful, beautiful human story in its hands like water. That is what I felt, and I want to tell you that alongside that fear, alongside that weight, was the most profound peace I have ever experienced in my life. Both at the same time. I don't know how to explain it except to say that they were not contradictions. They were the same thing experienced from two directions. The peace was so deep it was almost unbearable. It was the peace of knowing that you are known, not known the way your friends know you or your family knows you, but known completely. Every dark corner, every failure, every morning you woke up and were less than you should have been, every prayer you said half-heartedly, every time you chose comfort over courage, all of it known, all of it seen, and none of it the end of the story. The love in that presence was not the kind of love that overlooks things. It was the kind of love that sees everything and chooses you anyway, and that choosing is not a small thing. It is the largest thing there is. I was weeping. I don't know when I started, but I was weeping, and it didn't feel like sadness. It felt like release. Like something I had been carrying for 44 years was finally being set down. And then the message came. I say message, but it was not words delivered in sequence, the way I am delivering words to you now. It was more like understanding being placed inside me all at once. The way you might pour water into a glass, whole and complete, but I will tell it to you in words because that is all I have. What I understood was this. What I had been shown was not fiction. It was not a symbol or a metaphor or a spiritual illustration. It was real. The events I had seen approaching were real. They were not necessarily bound to a specific date or a specific sequence, but they were coming. the Earth had been moving toward a point of convergence for a long time, and that convergence was not far off. Not in the way people have been saying for centuries that the end is near as a kind of spiritual phrase. I mean in an immediate and pressing and urgent sense. What I saw was close, but I was also shown this, that the pause was real too. The moment everything stopped was not just a visual device, it was the meaning of the whole thing. There was a pause in what was coming, a window, a mercy built into the timeline that was not permanent, that would not last indefinitely, but that was real and present right now. And the purpose of the pause was invitation. That is the only word that kept rising up in me, invitation. The door was still open, the window was still open. There was still time for people to turn, not to turn in a casual way, not to add God to their lives the way you add a subscription service, but to actually turn, to come all the way around, to let go of what they had been holding and come back to the thing they were made for. And I understood that this was not a new message. This was not a revelation nobody had ever heard before. This was the oldest message there was. It was the message that had been spoken through every generation, every prophet, every person who had ever stood up with fire in their chest and told the people around them to wake up. The message had never changed. What I was being given was not new content, but new urgency. The urgency of someone who has seen what is on the other side of the pause and knows that the pause will not last and loves the people in the window with everything they have. I felt that love. I want to make sure I say that clearly. I felt the love behind the urgency. This was not a message given in anger. This was not God looking at humanity with contempt or disappointment or the cold satisfaction of someone who said, "I told you so." What I felt behind this message was grief that would break you if you fully felt it. The grief of a father watching a child walk towards something terrible. The grief of love that is completely willing to let you go and completely undone by the fact that you are going. There was grief in the very fabric of the pause, like the pause itself was an act of anguish, like holding back what was coming cost something. I don't know how long I was held in that space. It felt like a long time. It also felt like no time at all. Time was not behaving the way it normally does. But then something else happened that I was not prepared for. In the middle of that peace, in the middle of that presence, I started to see people. Not in the way I had seen the earth from above, with all its distance and scale. I started to see individual people, faces, ordinary faces, men and women and young people, faces from what looked like every part of the world, every kind of person, and they were going about their lives. They were working and laughing and arguing and eating and scrolling through their phones and sitting in traffic and lying in hospital beds and sitting in silence in rooms they didn't want to be in, just living, just trying to make it through another day. And I watched the presence look at them. I don't know how else to say it. I watched the presence that was surrounding me look at these people, and what I felt coming off that regard was not judgment. I want to say that as strongly as I can because I think people have a picture in their mind of a God who is mostly disappointed and mostly looking for reasons to condemn. What I felt when the presence looked at those individual faces was love so specific and so personal that it felt almost reckless. Like love that had no protection around it. Love that had left itself completely open to being hurt by the people it was looking at. Love that knew every single person by name and by history and by the deepest places in them that they had never shown anyone, and loved them exactly there, in exactly those places. And the grief again, the grief of someone who loves that, specifically watching people who don't know they are loved like that. Watching people fill the hole where that love belongs with everything except the thing that actually fits. Watching people be so lost in the noise of their lives that they can't hear the thing calling to them underneath all of it. I was undone. I was completely undone. If I had any defense left going into that moment, there was nothing left of it coming out. I was just open, just cracked open like something that had been trying too hard for too long to hold its shape. And in that state, I heard, or felt, or received a very simple thing. It was almost like being given a task, not in a bureaucratic or cold way, in the way someone who loves you asks you to carry something important for them, personal, entrusting. It was this: go back and tell people that there is still time. Tell them the door is still open. Tell them what you saw, but more than what you saw, tell them what you felt. Tell them about the love behind the warning. Tell them that the God they have heard about but maybe only ever met at a distance is not distant. Tell them that the urgency is real, but so is the invitation, and the invitation is the bigger word. Tell them while there is still time to tell them. I felt the weight settle on my chest the way a real responsibility does, not heavy in a crushing way, heavy in the way that something meaningful is heavy. I understood that I was not being asked to do this perfectly. I was not being commissioned because I was the most qualified person available. I was being asked the way you ask someone who was in the right place at the right time. I was just Mark. I was just a man who had laid down on a Thursday afternoon to rest his eyes, and now I had seen something, and the seeing meant I had a responsibility to the telling. I came back slowly, not with a jolt the way people sometimes describe coming back from something, more like a tide going out slowly, the presence becoming something I could feel receding rather than surrounding. The visual of that paused sky and that suspended earth fading like the last light of a day. And then I was just in my room, just lying there with the afternoon light coming through the curtains and the sound of the street outside and everything completely ordinary. I lay there for a long time without moving. I think I was afraid that if I moved too fast it would break something, like the way you hold very still when you have a butterfly on your hand, because you know the slightest wrong movement will send it gone. I didn't want to lose the feeling. I didn't want to lose the clarity. I kept thinking about those faces, those ordinary faces of ordinary people just trying to get through their days, loved that specifically, called that urgently, and most of them with no idea. I cried for a long time. I want to be honest about that. Grown men don't talk about crying, but I am telling you, I cried in a way I hadn't cried since I was a boy. Not sad exactly, just cracked open. Just real in a way I hadn't been real in a very long time. When I finally got up and went to the window and looked outside at the street, at the neighbor's car, at the kid riding a bike down the sidewalk, at the ordinary, unchanged world, something inside me had shifted that I knew once going back, not in a dramatic way. Not like I had become a different person with a different personality and different opinions. More like something that had been slightly off-center for my entire life had been set straight. Like a picture frame you keep meaning to fix, and one day somebody fixes it, and you realize how much the crookedness had been bothering you without you even knowing. The urgency was there. It has not left me since. But the peace was there too. And what I learned in that experience is that those two things, urgency and peace, are not opposites when they come from the same source. When the urgency comes from love and the peace comes from knowing who holds the outcome, they can exist in you simultaneously. They have existed in me simultaneously every day since that Thursday afternoon. I am telling you this because I was told to tell you this, not because I have anything to offer you beyond what I saw and what I felt and what was given to me to carry back. I am not starting a ministry. I am not asking you to follow me anywhere. I am just Mark. And Mark saw something and Mark was asked to speak it, and so I am speaking it. The pause is real. Right now, today, in this moment, as you read this, the pause is real. The window is open. The door is open. The love that was looking at those faces is looking at your face right now, and it is not looking with condemnation, and it is not looking with indifference, and it is not waiting for you to get your life together before it will accept you. It is looking at you the way it was looking at every face I saw in that place, with a love so specific and so complete that if you could feel it for even 1 second, it would undo you the way it undid me. But I also have to tell you what I saw before everything stopped, because it would be a dishonesty not to. What was approaching was real. The pause is real, but the pause has an end. Every window closes eventually. Every door that is open can close. And I am not able to tell you the day or the hour, and I would not if I could, because that is not how this works, and it has never been how this works. But I can tell you what I felt in that presence, when it looked at what was coming, and then looked at the people in the window. I can tell you that the feeling was the feeling of time being short, not someday short, not eventually short. Short in the way that makes you want to grab the people you love by the shoulders and say, listen to me. I need you to hear this. There is something I have to tell you. So this is me grabbing you by the shoulders, not in fear, in love. Because that is where this comes from. Every word of this comes from the love I felt in that paused sky, above that paused earth with that presence surrounding me, and those faces in front of me, and a grief underneath everything that was the grief of love that does not want to lose a single one. Turn, that is the word. Just turn. Turn from whatever direction you've been facing and face the other way. You don't have to have it figured out. You don't have to be cleaned up or qualified or certain or worthy. None of that was ever the requirement. The requirement has always been just this: turn and take a step, and then take another one. The love on the other side of that turning is not what you think it is. It is bigger than what you think it is, more personal than what you think it is, more willing than what you think it is. There's still time. Thank you for listening. If this testimony blessed you, please don't skip without giving this video a thumbs up. Also share this video to your loved ones so that they will be aware of this testimony. If you want to be receiving this kind of testimony that will keep at alert, then you need to subscribe to this channel so you don't miss any of the future videos that will be posted here. Remain blessed.